Hello, OK State transfer students. This is Cheryl Kleeman, your director, coming to you with another session of OK State Transfer Talks. Today, I have with me Fran Gragg. She has her MS in counseling. She is the assistant director of campus life, and she's been working in higher education for 26 years. Prior to coming to OSU, she worked at Western Connecticut University. And fun fact, she always names her cars. Yeah. So Fran, what do you call your current car?
My current car is Gert, short for Gertrude. And it just is a feeling when you name your car, you're just like, once you get to know it a little bit, you find the right name for it.
What was your favorite car and what was its name?
I'd say my favorite car was the first new car that I ever bought after getting out of school, and her name was Zoe.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My partner names all of his cars too. His right now is called Edward Collins because it sparkles in the sun.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it just, yeah.
Yes, cars definitely have a personality, and
yeah.
That is a very fun fact. I like that a lot.
Oh, thanks.
So when we're talking about transfer students and working in higher education, everybody always has a reason. Everybody always has this something that made them decide this is what I want to do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you have chosen to work in higher education and in student affairs specifically?
Okay. So my, I guess, higher ed origin story is that I just love, I love working with people as they embark on a new beginning. And I feel like this is one of the times when you do that. So starting and eventually finishing college is just a time of new beginnings. Regardless of your age or what you're doing, you chose to come to OSU for a reason. And often that is a change or to make a change. So, even if you are 60 years old and coming back to school because you always wanted to finish, you're embarking on a new adventure. And I just find that really exciting. And I also worked as an academic counselor for about 7 years prior to moving back into student affairs. And it was the same feeling, to meet someone as they came in, whenever that was, and whether they were a transfer or a new student coming straight from high school, and to see them embark on that new beginning. And then when they graduate, that's another new beginning for them. This is cool.
Yes, it is. That's one of the reasons I stay in higher ed is because of the students. They make it all worth it. And then seeing that just spark when they complete and they walk across that stage, that is one of the highlights for sure.
It is, absolutely.
So how do you see your position, and tell us a little bit about your position, assisting transfer students specifically?
I think transfer students are so unique in many ways because they come from so many different backgrounds and directions, in the sense that some are veterans or have families, and some of them are traditionally aged students who started at a community college and always knew that they were going to transfer to OSU. And some people ended up at OSU through whatever circumstances, moving around or just moving to the area and then deciding to go back to school. And so some of them come from, right down the street at NOC or across the country or the world. So I just say to emphasize that most of our organizations, and I'm talking more about organizations and activities here, but most of our organizations and activities and opportunities are open to anyone who is a student at OSU. And I think the diversity of experiences of transfer students meshes well and works really well with the diversity of the opportunities that they have in all these different student clubs and organizations. They really have a choice in what they can get involved with. Whether it's something related to their major or something that is cultural or religious or political or whatever, and they can find their fit.
So you talked a little bit about student organizations. So what is the importance of student organizations and how do they contribute to the student experience?
I think the main thing with a student organization or joining a student organization or attending events or meetings of an organization is that it helps ground people and gives them a sense of place at OSU. Whether it's because the club is related to an academic major that they're in, or something that they're passionate about, or because it's a religious or sports club, let's say, that reminds them of home, or some activities that they took part in the past. It helps provide a sense of place. And also, obviously, it develops relationships with other people who have the same interests that they do. So, when you join a club, you automatically have things in common with people. And then frequently, people who like the same things that you like many of the same things that you like. So if you join like the horticulture club, you might also run into other people who are also interested in plants and nature and hiking and camping and visiting botanical gardens or something like that. So I think it helps ground people, and it helps them get to a place where they can find their people who are interested in the same things that they're interested in.
Thank you, Fran.
Mm-hmm.
So in your time working with the student organizations here at Oklahoma State University, what is the most outlandish club that you never expected to see, but took off like wildfire and was super successful?
There have been a lot, honestly, that I'm like, how does this even exist as a club? But it does. And sometimes they come and go. The most recent one, and I'll just use this as an example because they're really active on campus right now and anyone can join, is the Butter Churning Club, which I think other people have heard about this. But basically they just get together, and I think it's once a month. It might be every other week, but they just select a different kind of butter that they're going to make, and they get together and make that. So I just think it's cool, that people have an interest. Maybe some people might think it's silly, but at the same time, anything that brings you together around this common purpose and this common goal is great, and it's a blast.
So I got to ask, have you tried their butter?
I haven't, no. But when they started, they were really excited, and that excitement was contagious when we first met with them, talking about different types of butter recipes and butter boards and things like that, which I had never really known was a thing, but you learn something new every day.
And I think that's one of the amazing thing about student-led activities like these student organizations, the Butter Churning Club, is even though you and I have been in higher education for a really long time, we still learn something new from our students every day.
Every day, yes, yeah.
So how can a student find an organization, or how can they find out about what the different student organizations do? Where do they go?
In addition to word of mouth, social media, just looking around at flyers and chalking and stuff like that on campus, all active student organizations have a profile on Campus Link, which is a platform that we use to help student organization leaders and members manage their club. But they can also find events and any student can find events and organizations on Campus Link, and it's just campuslink.okstate.edu. And they can just search for specific keywords for their major or an area of interest, or they can just browse through the different clubs available alphabetically. They can search through different events and see what interests them. I think that, of course, if you're looking for a specific type of major related organization, let's say, you would just type in your major into the search field. But I think it's good for students to just kind of browse through the events that are coming up within, the next few weeks to a month, and see what organizations are putting on the events that interest them, and then seek out those organizations. And that way you kind of get to find some things that you wouldn't necessarily find just by doing a strict search for a major or a keyword.
Thank you. That is all great information. So what are some of the things you would recommend that a new or returning transfer student do to get involved on campus? And why is campus involvement important for students?
I'll start out with, I think getting involved on campus is important for students because kind of like I mentioned before, it has that grounding effect for people and gives them a sense of place, especially when they're new or in a new environment. But we know that students should join clubs and participate in events or activities because they will feel more at home and are more likely to persist and graduate, because they always, when you join an organization, you'll meet somebody and then you'll meet their friends and then their friends, and you start to develop this kind of network that is also a safety net for you if you're having trouble in a class or just want to talk to somebody. And chances are the person that is in that class with you, somebody in that, or in that class, in that club with you, somebody in that club has taken the class that you might be having trouble with, or know someone who's taking that class that you might be having trouble with, and they can help you along with it with advice and assistance. So I think that's why you should get involved in an organization. But I'd say the things that I would recommend are to browse Campus Link. Again, look at some of the events that you think are interesting to you and just see what clubs are putting those on. Attend events first. You don't have to just jump right in and join a club. You can usually go to an event or a meeting or something like that and just meet folks and see who they are, when and where they meet, if it's something that you want to pursue. I'd say unless you know for sure that you want to join a very specific club, I'd do a little shopping first and go to those meetings and events first before you decide to join. Because time management is also an issue here. Our students are often short on time, so you want to make sure that the time that you're spending in clubs and organizations is worth your while and isn't too consuming. I think it's better and more rewarding and more impactful for a student to get deeply involved in one or two clubs instead of just superficially involved in 5 clubs.
Thank you. So you touched on this a little bit in a few of your different responses, and you talked about the fact that transfer students have this just amazing intersectionality of identities. They come from a wide variety of backgrounds and lived experiences. Some of them have work, families, other life obligations. How do you see adapting that student experience to try and meet our transfer students where they're at?
I would say that the thing that I usually adapt, if I'm talking to specifically to a transfer student about getting involved, or speaking with a group of transfer students about getting involved, it's, they actually, as transfer students, have a lot of experience because they've already been to college. They've been to college, they should take advantage of their skills in time management and prioritizing. And that's where those skills really come into play, because honestly, for fresh out of high school, 18-year-old student, I would say, okay, you have a little more time flexibility to join a lot of different clubs, so go for it. But with a transfer student, we adapt that to, okay, you've already been to college, you have some more skills that that new student might not have. This is where you use those skills to really prioritize your time and how you're using it. So that's why I would recommend for transfer students to do a little more shopping and be a little more aware and I guess discerning when they are choosing what clubs to join. Many times transfer students don't have the same time in the day, in the week, in the month, in the semester that first year students have, because if you transferred in, you might be in your upper division harder classes and they're just taking up more of your time, and you might have work and family responsibilities and other things that those first year students don't. So in that respect, I would adapt the message for transfer students to don't rush into joining all these clubs, shop around, and make sure you're using your time wisely in the clubs that you do join.
That is fantastic advice. Which actually leads into my next question. what piece of advice would you offer to our transfer students when they come to OSU? I mean, what is the one thing that you're like, you gotta know this?
Oh gosh. I'd say when it comes to clubs, my advice is time management, to put in the time and effort as your schedule allows. You know, the most important thing is your academics and, you know, maintaining your mental health and things like that. After that, yes, join some clubs and have a little fun in that respect. But I think honestly, the second thing that really transfer students need to know is there are people in places all over this campus to help you. And OSU is extremely friendly. We always used to joke that it's Disneyland. It's like Disneyland. Everybody's so friendly and kind. And so just ask, you know, come up to our office. We're in 211 Student Union, and just ask somebody. And if they can't find the answer, they'll find somebody who does know the answer for you, or we'll walk you down the hall to get an answer. And of course, I mean, Cheryl's office in Basement Student Union is another great resource. I mean, we're all over the place. So just, just stick your head in our door and find us.
Thank you. So this was not on the pre-scripted questions, but you touched on it a little bit too. You talked about, and I really appreciate this because I think sometimes our transfer students themselves forget this. You talked about the fact that our transfer students bring personal capital with them when they come to our university, and they have the capability to step into kind of these informal leadership roles, or even in some cases formal if they end up deciding to become an officer with a student organization or hold another leadership role on our campus. And that leadership piece I think is so important, and I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up and for pointing that out, because I do think that gets missed by the students and sometimes by others as well. That the simple fact that leadership capability, that lived experience gives a little something extra that is important. So I always like to end these sessions on a smile, and I always say, you know, what is your favorite thing about OSU, or do you have a joke, or how would you like to end with a smile today?
Well, you mentioned dad jokes, so and I thought about all the horrible dad jokes that my husband tells in particular, because he loves a good pun also. But my dad joke is, when does a joke become a dad joke?
Well, I know the answer to this one, but why don't you tell us?
When it becomes apparent.
That is one of my favorites, and it is a fantastic one. Thank you again, Fran, for being here with us and talking to us about student orgs. I know our students are going to really appreciate knowing that you're there in 211, which is on the second floor of the Student Union. You can't miss it.
No.
But thank you so much for tuning in for another session of OK State Transfer Talks. And as always, go Pokes.